Alright, budget magic time, playing some ultra budget white black Fabricate in standard, and okay. I mean, we got a lot of value with this hand. Evolving Wilds is going to kill me in this deck. That's the biggest downside to ultra budget is, it's so hard to play decent lands. So, Evolving Wilds is definitely not ideal, but you do what you got to do when you're building with a $50 budget. Prairie Stream for our opponent. Well, let's crack Evolving Wilds. We are going to want another land. Land? Syndicate Trafficker. Well, let's just Trafficker. Ideally, we'll draw land and get Bygone Bishops down, and then we can go on the massive card advantage plan, which would be pretty sweet. Without a land, this is going to be a bit slow. Or super slow, not just a bit. Pass the turn. Port Town, untapped for our opponent. Come on, land. Alright, there's a Plains. So let's get in with Syndicate Trafficker. If our opponent flashes in like a Rattle Chains to trade, we will accept that. Well, I guess we also accept Emulating Glare. Plains and Bygone Bishop. So we got the Bishop down, which is where we wanted to be. Hopefully it lives. And then we'll have to see. If we draw another land, we can go second Bishop into Thraben Inspector. That makes us 2 clues. Actually, 3 clues if Inspector resolves. If we don't draw a land, we might go Eiley and Thraben Inspector. So let's Thraben Inspector. Get a clue. Get another clue from Thraben Inspector. And then Eiley. Get a clue. And pass the turn. I'm not going to run Emulating Glare into a removal spell at the moment. Seems like a bad idea. We get... Did I say Emulating Glare into a removal spell? Not going to run Bygone Bishop into a removal spell like Emulating Glare. Oh, alright. Aetherflux Reservoir, eh? In a blue-white deck. Well, there's a swamp. So let's swing with everything. Step 1. We're going to have more clues than we can ever crack. Bygone Bishop gets us a clue. Thraben Inspector is going to get us 3 clues. So turn 5, 7 clues on the battlefield. Hopefully our opponent doesn't untap and Fumigate. That would be super bad. It would gain our opponent a bunch of life, wrath our board. If we can survive, we can just, if we don't get Wrath, we can just start, what is this? Come on, not Wrath. We can at least leave up mana to start sacking stuff to Eiley. Alright, Reflector Mage for our opponent. This has got to be bounce Eiley, I assume. I mean, I guess they can bounce a Bygone Bishop. That doesn't seem great, though. What our opponent has to consider is Eiley can potentially gain us a bunch of life. With our clues, too, we can theoretically set up the Marionette Master kill. Alright, they go with Bygone Bishop. Sure. So we can't recast Bygone Bishop this turn. Opponent passes. Zulaport Cutthroat. So let's... I really want to hit a land drop, so let's sack a clue. Let's sack a clue. Alright, there's a swamp. Took a little bit more effort than we were hoping, but it got there. Might as well attack with both. Eiley has Death Touch, so it can't really be profitably blocked by Reflector Mage. And I don't think this is really a combo build of Aetherflux Reservoir, at least from what we've seen so far. So hopefully, if we can keep our opponent's life total under pressure, then they won't be able to kill us. Opponent's going to bounce our Bygone Bishop. Okay, so our opponent takes 0 here. It's also possible that we could get enough life to start Vindicating with Eiley. We gotta get up to 30 life, then we can sack a creature, pay 3, get rid of, like, Aetherflux Reservoir. Opponent's only got 3 cards. We haven't seen anything that would suggest they're just gonna, like, combo off and kill us with Aetherflux. So I'm guessing... I think I saw this deck... I think it did something. Another Cutthroat. I really want to keep making our land drops. Let's sack a clue. There's a land. All right, there's a land. Let's play a bygone bishop. See what our opponent does. Resolves. And I think we're just going to pass for now. Opponent has 6 mana, means Torrential Gearhulk. Also, Avacyn is a possibility. Alright, Glimmer of Genius gains our opponent a life. So, I mean, Aetherflux is gaining our opponent a bit of life and keeping them out of the danger zone, but it's not really killing us. Alright, pass the turn. Feels like we're in pretty okay shape. I'm not 100% sure what to expect. Anticipate gains our opponent 2 life. I saw this deck. I didn't look at it too closely. I think it was at a SCGIQ or something, and it didn't look combo-y. It might just be the Aetherflux is there to gain life. Another Aetherflux is a bit scarier. That really picks up the speed on the life gain. No land. Alright, let's start by attacking. See what our opponent can do. Opponent takes it. Down to 17. So let's Zulaport Cutthroat. Get a clue. Does our opponent have counters? Looks like no. Zulaport Cutthroat number 2. Get a clue. And then I think we just pass the turn. Hope that we don't die to double Aetherflux. They shouldn't be able to get to 50, and we can drain for 4 if need be. Gaia Reach Sanitarium. So I think we might start sacking stuff to Eiley. This would gain us 4/4, because it gains by toughness, right? Yeah. Yeah, we probably got to start sacking things to Eiley to try to get up to 30 life. And then if we get to 30 life, we can exile Aetherflux Reservoirs, and then we're in good shape. Opponent passes, so let's sack a Thraben Inspector, drain our opponent. So we're up to 22, up to 24, getting close-ish. So we sack our other Thraben Inspector, puts us up to 28. Opponent's down to 13. Marionette Master would also be pretty insane here. Okay. What does our opponent have? Engulf the Shore. Gonna bounce all of everything. Puts our opponent back up to 15. Okay. So let's see. 1, 2. Syndicate Trafficker. 1, 2. Zulaport Cutthroat. 1, 2. Eiley. Pass the turn. So our opponent's got Reflector Mage and 2 unknowns. We're up to 28, so we're getting close to exiling Aetherflux Reservoir, but we're not there. Opponent's probably going to bounce Eiley. Gains 2 life. Bounces Zulaport Cutthroat. Okay. We're fine with drawing lands. Oh my god. Alright, well, let's attack with Syndicate Trafficker. Actually, let's not. Let's just cast Marionette Master. And we're going to put the counters on it. Make it a 4/6. So this is pretty much it for our opponent. They need to do something this turn, or we just win by sacking out our clues and draining with Marionette Master. Alright, 6 mana means Torrential Gearhulk. I guess they can flashback Engulf the Shore? They might have to. Alright, they go with Essence Flux. Essence Flux is going to blink Torrential Gearhulk, gains our opponent some more life. Guess that's kind of a combo. And then Torrential Gearhulk will Glimmer of Genius. Well, our opponent's still in the same position, though. I mean, they're up to 29, but how much damage can we deal? 4 times 6? So I guess our opponent's not just dead. I still don't think they can kill us here. Alright, there's a Reflector Mage. Gotta bounce Marionette Master, I assume. While we're tapped out. Yep. Alright, that's going to keep our opponent alive. And another Glimmer. Going to gain our opponent some life. Opponent's up to 35. Plays a land. Maybe they're going to be able to kill us here. I mean, they don't kill us right here. I guess if they find another Essence Flux, if they're playing multiples of those, that could do it, because they can blink Gear Hulk. Interesting. So it's not really a combo build, but really, they... Alright, opponent found it. Sure. Okay, well, we know what our opponent's trying to do now. Luckily, we have sideboard cards. Transgress, Pick the Brain, Anguish Unmaking, and Kemble. So we're going to go down Grasp of Darkness. Doesn't seem very good in this matchup. Go down Vampiric Rites. Go down Stasis Snare. Basically, we want our removal to be able to deal with Aetherflux, because I don't think our opponents... Well, I don't know what their sideboard plan is, but I think they're pretty dependent on Aetherflux to win. So if we can deal with Aetherflux... And we were actually pretty close there. We were 2 life away when our opponent started blinking everything. And then they were able to sort of combo off, although it's not a very fast combo. They really needed to have 2 Aetherflux reservoirs for it to really work at all. So it's definitely not like the Against the Odds build we played, where you have this one big turn where you go from 2 life to 80 life. It's definitely slower than that. Which I think means if we can disrupt their Aetherflux reservoirs, we should be okay. Maybe go down a Bygone Bishop. Do we even want Fragmentize? It's pretty limited. And we have 3 Anguish Unmakings, 2 Quarantine Fields, and a Transgress Mine. Maybe we don't Fragmentize. Let's try it like this. Alright, we're on the play. We can also just get a more aggressive draw, which is not this draw. Okay, well, this is interesting. In theory, we can Bygone Bishop, Weaponcraft Enthusiast into Angel of Invention, which represents a lot of damage. No answers to Aetherflux, though. This is an odd matchup. We'll keep this. Oh, well, I think we got to keep Westville Abbey. Westville Abbey seems pretty good, since we have enough creatures in our hand already to be able to flip it. So Plains go. Opponent has an island. Now we'll Evolving Wilds go. Gotta get a Plains with this for Angel of Invention. Another island for our opponent. So crack this. Let's get a Plains. Ooh, another Angel. So we just need a land. Bygone Bishop, pass the turn. Well, if we just draw a land and can curve into double Angel of Invention, things go pretty crazy. Weaponcraft Enthusiast. Well, let's see. Play Westville Abbey. Play Weaponcraft Enthusiast. Get a clue token. Go wide with servos. And then I think we're pretty safe to attack here. They have no white mana, so we don't got to worry about Emulating Glare and that stuff at the moment. So opponent's down to 18. We pass. Loots with Gaia Reach. I want this land, but it's tapped and slow, and we probably can draw another one. And let's pitch Weaponcraft. I think we want to hit our land drops here, so we can play these Angels. These Angels seem very good. Opponent has the Aetherflux. Well, if we draw an untap land, that would be even better. Untap land? This works. So we will just Quarantine Field X1, get rid of Aetherflux. Play a tap land, attack with everything, minus Weaponcraft. Put our opponent down to 14. So having some answers for Aetherflux seems pretty good. The thing with Aetherflux being 4 mana is it's kind of hard to... Crumbling Vestige. It's kind of hard to tap out for it and protect it in the same turn. Opponent has Cloudblazer. I don't know what's happening. Cloudblazer, I haven't really seen outside of Panharmonicon. What do we draw? I mean, we could start slamming Angels, which is sweet. So Angel of Invention pumps up the team. I think we keep going wide with servos, play another Westville Abbey, do some attacking, put our opponent down to 9, I believe, which happens to be exactly lethal from an Ormondal. Although our opponent has a blocker, so it's not lethal right this second. Aether Hub. So our opponent does have white mana now, real white mana. They must be playing Eldrazi. I don't know why else you play Crumbling Vestige. It's an odd choice in a deck that has instants. I was going to put it in one of our 4-color decks, but if you're playing instants, I think it was the Turbo Fog deck. It's questionable if you're playing instant speed stuff. If you're playing all sorceries, if you're playing at all sorcery speed, it's pretty fine if you need colorless mana. But if you're trying to play Blessed Alliance, that's kind of a no-bo. So I assume that means our opponent's playing Eldrazi. I don't know why else you would play Crumbling Vestige. So our opponent goes to combat and passes. We get another Quarantine Field. Well, I think we're just going to attack. See what our opponent does, and if somehow things go wrong, we can always flip into an Ormondal. Although it's a little risky, because we've seen Reflector Mage. Reflector Mage is the natural enemy of Ormondal. Opponent blocks. If they can't kill our Angel, I think they're just dead here. Gearhulk doesn't do it, but, well, I guess they could Blessed Alliance. Oh, they have Engulf the Shore. Okay, Engulf the Shore. Bounces a bunch of stuff. We're just going to replay our Angel, make some servos, pass the turn. So our opponent can Cloud Blazer again. Anticipates. We have another answer in hand, though, for a future Aetherflux Reservoir. Alright, pass the turn. What does our opponent have? They're still under a lot of pressure. And if their plan is to use creatures to stabilize, Quarantine Field is a good answer for that. Our opponent's also getting low on time, which could be a concern for them over the long run. There's the Aetherflux Reservoir. Okay. Opponent passes. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Alright, let's just attack with everything. Our opponent has to respond or they lose to our attack. Alright, Emulating Glare on our Angel. That's fine. So we hit our opponent down to 6. Then we crack our Clue in case we find a land. Jeez. We are Angel of Invention flooded. Good news is Quarantine Field will take care of that Aetherflux. So we got our opponent tapped out, and we can kind of present lethal again next turn thanks to having all these angels. We've drawn every single angel in our deck somehow in our top 16 cards, which is kind of crazy. Does our opponent have another Aetherflux? 5 mana. Oh, is this just Cloud Blazer again? Alright, there's Cloud Blazer. Puts our opponent up to 8. And draws a couple cards. There's still a concern for our opponent that they're just going to run out of time. Because this is only game 2. Alright, Reflector Mage, likely going after our, Bygone Bishop. Fair enough. We draw planes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I think we just Angel of Invention, make some servos, pass the turn. So we have a Westville Abbey flip set up again. Another Reflector Mage, probably hitting our Angel. Yup. Well, that means we can't cast half of our hand next turn, since we have so many angels. Opponent gets in with Cloud Blazer, down to 18. And passes. Ooh. So let's lead on Bygone Bishop, and then Chemball, get a clue. Chemball is actually pretty sweet sideboard tech against this deck. We only have 1 in the sideboard, but our opponent's deck is looking to cast a lot of spells. And Chemball just drains our opponent every spell they cast. Pretty solid. So pass the turn. Island for our opponent. Stasis Snare, drains for 2. They gotta go after Chemball. Or else they're just gonna lose. Yep. Alright, so Chemball down. Goes to combat. And passes. We draw a Swamp, so play the Swamp. Play an Angel of Invention. Make some more servos. Weaponcraft Enthusiast, get a clue. Make some more servos. Hopefully we don't get fumigated. Fumigate would gain our opponent a lot of life. Pass the turn. Is this Gear Hulk? Oh, our opponent might just have Engulf the Shore. Or Gear Hulk 4. Yep. Alright, there's Gear Hulk. So I guess it would have been better to wait, play Weaponcraft post-combat for this reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, 5. Alright. Let's pass the turn. So our opponent survives another turn thanks to Torrential Gear Hulk. Has Cloud Blazer, double Reflector Mage in hand. Gets in with the Gear Hulk, puts us down to 15. We have 8 mana, so we can... Alright, there's Cloud Blazer. Draws our opponent some cards, so we can, like, Bygone Bishop into Angel, most likely. So, Bygone Bishop, Angel of Invention. Make some servos. Pass the turn. What's our opponent have now? Glimmer of Genius to draw some cards. Untaps. 7 cards in our opponent's hand. We haven't really gotten a good window to crack our clues. We have a source of card advantage. We just haven't really been able to take advantage of it. There's an Ether Hub. Is it Reflector Mage time? There's Reflector Mage. Hits our Bygone Bishop. Okay. Stasis Snare. Hits our Angel. Sure. Goes to combat. We're going to chump Torrential Gear Hulk here. Attacks with both. So, chump the Gear Hulk. Take 2 from Cloud Blazer. Luckily, we can recast our Angel, because that didn't get hit by Reflector Mage. Ooh. And Marionette Master. So 1, 2, 3. Weaponcraft Enthusiast. Make some servos. And Angel of Invention. Number 3, I think we're at. Make some more servos. Pass the turn. We're able to continually go wide enough that it's hard for our opponent to actually deal much damage to us. And they have an amount of islands now where Engulf the Shore is going to bounce all their stuff. So we don't have to worry about them bouncing and leaving the Gear Hulk around. Essence Flux on the Gear Hulk. I'm assuming they just Glimmer here. Yep, Glimmer of Genius. Time is becoming more of a concern for our opponent. They are down to 441, and we're just under 14, so we have a massive edge in time, and this is still game 2. So if we do win this game, our opponent's deck doesn't seem that fast. It's pretty grindy, so it's going to be challenging, I think, for our opponent to actually win. Alright, Eldrazi Displacer is interesting. That's a lot of Gear Hulk activations. Luckily, our opponent's graveyard is not too scary. They go with Reflector Mage, Blink Reflector Mage, bounce our Angel. Okay. Goes to combat. Attacks with the Gear Hulk and Cloud Blazer. So we'll throw a servo in front of the Gear Hulk. Opponent passes. We get a Swamp. So let's Bygone Bishop. Thraben Inspector, get a clue, play the Swamp, sack a clue, and pass the turn. See what our opponent does here. 5 mana, untaps. 6 mana, another Gear Hulk. So Essence Flux, Anticipate. I would guess you just Anticipate. Yep, opponent's going to Anticipate. Is there any way our opponent kills us here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems unlikely. They can potentially bounce 4 of our creatures, but I don't think bouncing 4 actually kills us. Opponent displaces Reflector Mage. Bounces Bygone Bishop. Displaces Reflector Mage. I don't know why they're doing it in response, but sure. Bounces Thraben Inspector. Does it again. Goes after a Servo. And last one. So the problem our opponent has is if we draw an untap land, we actually can just get the Marionette Master kill. So they bounce a Servo, bounce our Inspector, bounce Bygone Bishop, go to combat, swings with everything. So we just block, block, and block. Take 2. So 1, 2, crack a clue token. Bygone Bishop is not what we wanted. Untap land, Anguished Unmaking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's Marionette Master. Go wide with Fabricate. We haven't seen counters from our opponent. Let's just pass the turn. Leave up our Anguished Unmaking. Anguish Unmaking gives us a few different options. So Anguish Unmaking, we can get back our Angel of Invention. If our opponent goes with the blink all of our stuff plan. Oh, blinks our Marionette Master? That is an odd choice. We will make servos. I'm guessing that was a mistake and our opponent was thinking, I want to bounce Reflector Mage, or blink Reflector Mage, bounce Marionette Master, but instead they clicked a bit fast and just clicked the Marionette Master. Alright, so they play a Reflector Mage to bounce it. I guess I should have played this Forsaken Sanctuary, but goes to combat, swings with everything. So 1, 2, 3 on Displacer, 1, 2, and 3. Opponent's going to blink Torrential Gearhulk for Essence Flux. Essence Flux, the Displacer. Okay. We drop to 7. End of turn. Anguish Unmaking the Stasis Snare. Get some more servos. Opponent blinks Reflector Mage. Bounces our Angel. Okay. We'll play Forsaken Sanctuary. Is there any way we win here? We could try it. Do we just go for the win? We Zulaport Cutthroat, flip into Ormondal. There's no way our opponent would just leave themselves open to dying to Ormondal, I don't think. That seems like a stretch. They probably have Essence Flux. We have 9 mana, so we can Thraben Inspector, Cutthroat, Marionette Master. Yeah, let's do that. So, Thraben Inspector, get a clue. Zulaport Cutthroat. Marionette Master. Oh, we can't Marionette Master. So the only thing we can cast is Bygone Bishop. We Bygone Bishop, Bygone Bishop. Our opponent blinks 4 things. Get in for 2. We'll have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They blink 4. We're down to 6. That should keep us alive. Going on the Ormondal plan is just so risky. Yeah, so Bygone Bishop, Bygone Bishop. Get a clue. Pass the turn. See if our opponent can actually kill us. There's an Ether Hub. Goes to combat. Swings with everything. So we block. We block. We block. We block. We block. We block. Opponent's going to start blinking. We get some Cutthroat triggers. Put our opponent down to 4. And, oh, alright. Opponent scoops it up. That was very interesting. Our opponent's deck was really sweet. That was a lot better than I imagined for a non-combo Aetherflux Reservoir deck. The synergy of Torrential Gearhulk with Essence Flux was pretty impressive. But we won. I mean, it took a long time, but we won.